Namaste. As we know, the prayers and meditations of the Mother are also some of the profound experiences that are there within it. One of the experiences that we are going to read today, actually, it is the crux of the Gospel of Divine Works, which is given in the Gita. We know that the Mother had already realized the truth of the Gita. But when you go to the traditional Pandits who will talk about the Gita, they'll talk about slokas, their meaning, slokas and their meaning. But here we have a living experience of how a Jivan Mukta works. And she has expressed it so beautifully. She is not mentioning that this is how it is, because truth is something which is vast, universal. It's a book may mention it in a one way, like the Gita is a very wonderful scripture, we know. Someone else may experience something very similar but in a different way. Another book may express it in a different way. So she is telling us, without mentioning anything, as to what is that experience when a person is completely not just open to the divine, but the divine flows through the person. So, one of the problems that we know, which the Gita tackles, is it possible to do works in a state of nirvana? When your consciousness is completely free, what happens then? So, we have the traditional understanding where it is said, well, when you have achieved nirvana, there is no more works to be done. Or so you can withdraw, or you can continue with works as a result of the exhaustion of your past karma. So there is something which is going on, a cycle which has started, your inner being has achieved nirvana, your soul is free. But there are certain things which, from past momentum, have to continue and have to be dropped over a period of time. But this is not what Sri Aurobindo says. He has a very beautiful whole, chapter on nirvana and works in the world. So, and see, this is the question Arjuna had asked Shri Krishna. And Shri Krishna just hints at it, that what is the inner state of the person? He doesn't speak about any outer signs. We can presume that at that point of time, it was the rush of the battle. So, Shri Krishna gives essential hints. But then the mother reveals what really happens. How does one work? Because ordinarily, when we work because of some motive. Usually, the motive is desire. That's how people say that when there is no desire, what do you do and how do you do? Now, there is something called as below desire, which is instinct and impulsions of various kind. There, it's not necessary that there is a desire, but there is a restlessness, what is called as vital spontaneity. Then there is thought, one thinks and acts. This is what normally we do. But when all these three layers are quietened and the soul is free, how does one do works? So that's where we see that Sri Aurobindo speaks about in Synthesis of Yoga, in the Gita. He brings out a truth which is there in the Gita, but he develops it to its fullness, and that is the supreme will. Then we don't act under the impulsion of desire. We don't act under just a restless need for work. We don't act because of the mind's ideas, dogmas, calculations, interest, preferences, nor by the mind's, opinions, viewpoints, moral, social, ethical, even religious ideas. So how does such a being act? Such a being acts purely by letting the instruments in the hands of the master and let the master flow through it. As Sri Aurobindo says in one of his aphorisms, I am not a jnani, I am not a bhakta. What am I then? I am a leaf driven by the breath of the Lord. So, he becomes like a flute, all hollow inside, no ego, which is obstructing anything. And he just let the breath of the divine flow through it. So she has an experience which is documented here, and it's very illustrative of what our life should be like. December 10th, 1912. O Supreme Master, Eternal Teacher, it has been once more granted me to verify the unequalled effectivity of a full confidence in thy leading. Thy light was manifested through my mouth yesterday, and it met no resistance in me. The instrument was willing, supple, keen of edge. So, we have Sri Aurobindo's poem Jivan Mukta about it, and we have similar experience of Sri Aurobindo when he comes out of Alipur jail. Even before that, when he has entered a state of nirvana, so he has to go and give a talk in Bombay, a couple of places, and then he asks Lele Maharaj, my mind is totally silent. So, what do? I have to give a talk. He said, nothing. You just do pranam to the divine within, and he will speak what has to be spoken. And that's why Sri Aurobindo at one point also says that I have come to say something, but the words are snatched from my mouth, and the divine put some other words. Now, this is important because very often people think that when you have arrived at inner freedom, then one stops speaking. This is a traditional understanding. Someone asked even Sri Aurobindo that Sri Ramakrishna said that, when the vessel is empty, then it makes sound. When it is full, then it becomes silent. So Sri Aurobindo said, yes, but even he continued to, reveal truths in the gospel. Sri Aurobindo himself, we know that 35 volumes of the Arya, not 35 volumes of Arya, Arya may be totally about 20 volumes, but still, so much. So it is not that the person who has arrived at inner silence or a state of nirvana stops acting in the world. In fact, his work is much more powerful. Sri Aurobindo says that the work of the yogin is much more powerful than in ordinary life, precisely because he is drawing a much larger breath. His finite being is open to an infinite consciousness. His finite knowledge is now touching the peaks of infinity. His finite love in the human heart is open to infinite love and infinite delight. His finite passions, which exhaust themselves very soon, are open to the infinite energy, luminous energy of the Lord, which flows through such a person. So here is this description. In Savitri, it is there in book 7, canto 5, Finding of the Soul, where we see how each center opens after that, and it's the divine consciousness that flows through every aspect. So here she is speaking about the mouth and speech, but it can manifest through any and every organ. The hands, the feet, and it's significant here because many people have this understanding that mother's work is only what is done by the hands and feet. At least I used to have this dilemma. People would often, say that, real work is only when, you are doing here, there. So I said, see, divine has given us hands, feet, and also a mouth. So why this instrument cannot be used in service of the divine? It's a misconception. Why the mouth? Even heartbeats, breath can become instruments of the divine. So that wherever you breathe, you release certain kinds of energy. Mother speaks of this in context of Pondicherry. She uses the word wherever within the 10 kilometers radius, you cannot breathe without breathing my atmosphere. Why? Because she is releasing that atmosphere, that energy in the atmosphere by her very breath. So even the breath and heartbeat of a person who is inwardly free and open to the Lord becomes a means for the divine love, sweetness, light, radiance, energy, power, force, ananda to radiate into the world. Here she is saying, in the context of speech, that I had once more a proof. Several times she has done it. The first time, probably the experience which is documented is few months before this, she meets Abdul Baha, and he tells her that I am not too well. Why don't you go and speak? Mother says, but I don't speak. No, you go. Why don't you speak? You just let speech flow through you. So she goes and then she speaks. And it's such a beautiful speech. And also in many of some of the meetings when she speaks about thoughts, dreams. So there is another kind of speech, and in our traditional yoga, in Tantra especially, there are 4 levels at which speech operates. So there are 2 lower levels and 2 higher levels. So the lower levels are Vaikhari and Madhyama. Vaikhari is the most outward speech. Madhyama is what is in the thoughts, subtler. Then there is Paravak, the Pashyanti Vak, seeing intelligence, where you actually see. You have not spoken, But the fact that you have seen, the fact that a truth has been revealed to you, it is spreading into the atmosphere and having its effect. It has been revealed to you, but it has its effect in the atmosphere. And then beyond it is the paravak, the ultimate nad, where there is the first primal stir. And ultimately, speech must embody that. And that is the difference. At one place, the other day, one of the writing of the mother, that for spiritual speech, one must be inspired. Because inspired means not Vaikri and Madhyama, but at least Pashyanti Vak. One is receiving some illuminations and letting it express through the mouth. And of course, with mother, I'm sure it is Paravak, her vibrations, which are using the speech. This is a subject where many things can be spoken of. She says even ordinary word has power, so we should be so careful when we speak. And then someone asked her, Mother, what is it that is there in your words that when you speak, it has a certain effect upon us? And this 5-6 lines, the sadhak has asked this question, what do you put in your words ultimately? And mother's answer is one word. She says consciousness. Another place she says about her own words that do not take my words for a teaching. They are always a force in action. And when you dissociate them from this purpose, then they lose their sense. So they are a force in action. So here we have a concrete example of how she would speak and what speech can become. O Supreme Master, Eternal Teacher, it has been once more granted to me to verify the unequalled effectivity of a full confidence in thy leading. Thy light was manifested through my mouth yesterday. And there is another condition. And it met no resistance in me. The instrument was willing, supple, keen of edge. So how do resistances come? The divine inspiration comes, intuition comes, and Sri Aurobindo says it enters the mind where reason takes over. And it starts cutting, chopping, mixing. People who too much categorize, classify this way, that way. And Mother at one place says that if you do this, explain Sri Aurobindo's teaching in a very formatted, organized way, then you have lost it. You have turned it into an organized religion. Because it's not like that. It's a yoga which is expressing itself in manifold ways. In everything in life. That's why I read Mother's conversations. Even Sri Aurobindo's writings. It's very interesting. He's not saying, okay, today we'll talk about psychic being and 1, 2, 3, 4 points. Because everywhere the psychic being can be discovered in countless ways. How are we going to categorize it? But the resistances come when the mind believes this way, that way, all its ideas, opinions. When this light enters, it meets with resistance. Can be, cannot be, should not be, but it's become a clear, limpid channel. It comes, enters the brain, and the vocal apparatus is also prepared, ready, and then it expresses itself. So sometimes, it's so important. At one place toward the later part, Mother speaks of the eyes getting transformed, the vocal apparatus getting transformed. So if you hear the voice of the Mother towards the later part, 72, 73, you will feel it is cracking. That's the human understanding. She was saying there is such a tremendous power which is entering the throat that the human apparatus, and that is her preparation, you can imagine, that human apparatus is not able to receive it fully. And that's what we understand when, Sri Aurobindo had to revise things. Savitri, why did he have to revise again and again? Precisely because it's coming from the highest plane like a cascade. And when it enters the human brain, imagine, we are reading, but he is writing lines after lines as cascades. So even the best of instruments, Sri Aurobindo is prepared so well, the language, he has perfect mastery in every way, and yet, while it is expressing itself here and there would be some transmission issues. But the correction also comes by transmission. That's the beauty. So Sri Aurobindo would not correct saying, oh, should it be like this or should it be like that by rules of grammar? No. The correction also comes through the transmission. So that's another kind of life we can't even imagine. And this is not only about speech, about everything. See, with Mother going to pluck vegetables, she would get this vegetables will say, take me, don't take me. Dealing with human beings, it's a different world altogether and a different consciousness. So she says, instrument was willing, supple, keen of edge. So the instrument should not be, and often I give this example, say the mouth is an instrument. If we want it to become an instrument for the divine expression of the divine light, so what are the things we should not be expressing through the mouth? We can understand, we don't even need to talk about it. How harsh we are, what kind of words, language people use. How can then the mouth be open to expressing higher truths and deeper thoughts? That's why the mother says, if you use this kind of language, slander with a foul language, then it's like spiritual suicide, because this is the importance of speech and this apparatus. It is thou who art the doer in each thing and each being. This again a great realization of the Gita. As long as we think I am the instrument, we have not yet touched the first we realize and experience that yes, we are the instrument. Then we go further and we realize that no, I am not the instrument. The instrument is created by nature. Oh, I am the worker. Next step. Then you realize no, you are not even the worker. Nature is the worker. Then you become one with the master of works. And till we pass through these stages, if I believe I am the instrument, then I have limited myself to the most elementary stages. Even sometimes it can lead to grandiosity and all kinds of, even titanic forces can use when people say, oh, I am very important. If I don't sit on the throne, the empire will collapse, or how will work be done if I step away? It's the sign that one is still having the egoism of the instrument. And then the next level is, okay, I am the worker. Even that should drop away. So here we again have this profound experience of the Gita. The Gita describes it initially when it says step back, Sankhya Yoga. So, when Sri Krishna describes that all the forces come and enter into his vast sea-like calm. So it is thou who art the doer in each thing and each being. So not only in me, everywhere in all things. And he who is near enough to thee, not even identifications. He's saying, he who is near enough to thee to see thee in all actions without exception will know how to transform each act into a benediction. Mark the words straight from the Gita, sarv karmani, sarv karmani, sarv karmani. Even it goes on to say, yukt ahar viharasya. Even eating of food, even entertainment can be done in a state of union with the divine. Of course, yukta ahar viharasya, some people interpret as middle path, balanced. But Sri Aurobindo takes it to a highest level. He says, no, everything can be done in a poise of inner union with the divine. So all actions, he's saying there's not a single action. And then what happens when you know that you are not the doer and you let the divine force flow, and of course you keep offering that action, whatever it be. It may be an action of thought, it can be action of emotions, heart, feelings. It can be the upsurge of passions in a certain direction. It can be the physical body. Every action can be turned by an offering toward the divine into a transformed action. What we have to do is, this mental thought, ideas which keeps interfering, stay in a state of quietude and just remember that it has to be just offered back. From whichever source it's coming, just offer and uplift it and leave it to the divine feet. This is important. Otherwise, we don't know. We can be driven into all kinds of directions. So she says, he who is near enough to thee, to see thee in all actions without exception. This qualification without exception is like, it qualifies it further. Will know how to transform each act into a benediction. So then one knows, leaves it entirely to the Divine Mother. And this is a very subtle thing, so one must slightly distinguish it. It's a high yogic stage. It doesn't mean that somebody would say, okay, I am getting angry, so I leave it to the divine and the divine is expressing through me. This vital spontaneity, this comes when already one has arrived at a stage of inner freedom. So we should not mistake prematurely, like some people say, oh, mother is doing everything, so I take it that, mother is making me do it. But at the same time, we must understand that there is a state of consciousness towards which we must rise through the yoga of the Gita, through integral yoga, through a sustained aspiration and surrender, wherein all actions, without exception, can be done through a direct inflow of the divine force. What about fear and anger and all that? Sri Aurobindo says they are not, they are like distorters. Like we have to take away mind's opinions. So this fear, anger, they are distortions which are arising from below to mix with the divine action. So when it is said all action, it doesn't mean that, okay, I am angry, I am afraid, I am indulging in all kinds of, lustful activities, and I say, no, that is the lower nature that spoils the truth of the divine action, like it was spoiling in Arjuna's case. The divine was inspiring him to do something, and his ideas, opinions, viewpoints would come in the way. But when we are in a state of inner quietude, open to the divine, then all actions can be an expression of the divine force. But this subtlety we must know that even Sri Aurobindo goes on to say that it is true that all action ultimately behind it is the Divine Mother. But we have to identify with the Divine Mother in the higher nature and not in the lower nature. This distinction is important. The Gita doesn't draw this distinction directly, but indirectly it does when it speaks about Devasuri Sampada. And it speaks about Tamogun, Rajogun, Satugun. Here this action is when one has risen beyond Satugun and allows the light to manifest and express itself. So how do we go there? Now she gives us a wonderful hint and a clue. To abide always in thee is the one thing that matters. Is my action taking me away from this inner dwelling in the Divine Mother? Now this is something we can see only in the sincerity of our heart. Or is it carrying me closer and closer to her? This is the only mark. There is no other sin. If we see the Veda, all that deviates from the truth. And how to know all that deviates from the truth? There is a veiling inside. How will we know the veil if we have never opened it? But we'll feel the heaviness, we'll feel restlessness, we'll feel excitement, we'll feel anger, we'll feel frustration. All these are signs, depression, that we have deviated from the straight truth of our being. So we must align ourselves. So what is important is not, oh, how am I? It's not a performance. Some people, sometimes you see in a theater, drama, sometimes even here, or they make something and they want appreciation. So how was it? Now, well, it's an offering. She will show us how it was or it was not. And then you will know it from inside that whether this was aligned with the divine or it was not aligned with the divine. The same action can be aligned or not aligned. So important thing is to abide in the divine and then let the divine do what he has to do. Always and evermore and more in thee, beyond illusions and the deceptions of the senses. So illusions, the biggest illusion is I am the doer, I am the instrument. So beyond all the illusions and deceptions of the senses, not drawing back from action. So you see, entire Gita is here. Because the moment she says illusion, we have a whole traditional understanding of illusion. Mother is saying, abide in the divine and no illusions. Now, what is illusion here? See, illusion refers specifically to perception. Illusion is not about action, it's the way we perceive things. Now, when that illusion is gone, action doesn't vanish, knowledge takes its place. And the classic example of illusion is the rope and the snake. Shankaracharya himself has given it. I don't know why later commentators have changed it into there is nothing and you see something. If that is the case, then withdrawing from action is the logical thing. But in this analogy of the rope and the snake, there is something which is misperceived. Now, when we remove this misperception, which comes due to the ego and the senses, then what we perceive? We see the divine force working in the world. Why would we then withdraw from action? And this truth is also revealed in the first two slokas of the Isha Upanishad. So the first sloka is about the basis of life and action, and the second is action itself. So the first sloka is Isha Vasyamidam Sarvam Yat Kincha Jagatyam Jagat Tena Tyaktena Bhunjita Ma Krida Kasya Svidhanam. First step, abide in the divine. Know that the divine abides in all creatures, even in the smallest of activities. That's why it's qualified as Jagatyam Jagat. Even in the smallest of activities and movements of nature, it is He. Therefore, covet nothing, have greed for nothing. When you are in that state of freedom, knowing that everything belongs to the Lord, you live in delight. And when you have arrived at delight, should you withdraw from the world? No. Kurvanne vehe karmani jiji vishechatang sama. Doing works in the world, verily, one must live for 100 years. And then it further qualifies. This is the path shown to us by those who have gone before us, and not otherwise. Action cleaves not to a man. If we follow this path, then action will no more be a bondage. Otherwise, when we do it in the egoism, then it's a bondage. So she's revealing us the truth that we should go beyond illusions and the deceptions of the senses, not drawing back from action, refusing it, rejecting it. No. A struggle, useless and pernicious, she is further qualifying. Withdrawing from action, it is a useless struggle. Why it is useless? This is exactly what Shri Krishna tells Arjuna. Arjuna, you are indulging in mithyachar. You are not a Buddha. When you withdraw from the war, what is going to happen? You have withdrawn thinking that, one day Gandhiji will come and tell withdraw from outer violence. But you are a Kshatriya by nature. When you are in the camp, you will itch for the battle, but you will suppress it. So what you are doing? You are indulging in mithyachar. So rather fight the battle, but fight in the true state. And then he takes him step by step that you are a Kshatriya. A righteous battle is perfectly fine for you. It's your Swadharma. Then takes him further and further ultimately to that final consummation. Sarva dharman parityajya mamekam sharanam raja. Aham tva sarva papebhyo mokshishyami masucha. So first he says refusing, rejecting action is something which is not possible because outwardly you will refuse it. Inwardly it will continue. Later on it will go in the subconscious. One will say, oh, I am free. No, one is not free. The second, what we have to refuse and reject are the states of consciousness that egoism, fear, anger, lust, that has to be rejected, not action. So look at we have to be like, that surgery, divine, if we leave it to the divine, he'll do this microsurgery, where he will remove the things which distort the action and let the action flow freely. So not refuse or reject actions, he says a thing which is not possible. And then she says pernicious, because if you do it, why pernicious? If you do it persistently, you will become a mithyachari. You will want to show an image of being saintly, harboring all the unsaintly things, whatever it means, and keeping them all stored in the subconscious parts. So it's pernicious, very dangerous. So she says, a thing, a struggle, useless and pernicious. The Gita uses the word useless in a different way. It's the same thing. Shri Krishna says that, you can't, because nature will drive you. You can't reject it. Later on, Mother has upgraded this. And later on she says, not only nature will continue to work according to its own. That's why the Gita would say that, don't try to stop the action because it's nature. But step back from that and then live in my state and be united with him. That's how the Gita ends there, because transformation is not there. Mother says, yes, I know all this, when somebody asked her. And there is a state of consciousness like Paramahansas who allow everything in nature to fly through them. They are not bound. They are free inside. They don't struggle against nature. But she says, no, nature can be transformed. Now that is much later. So here she is only touching upon that. She is not developing that full aspect of transformation. Here it's about action done in a state of inner freedom, removing all that interferes with the free divine flow through our being. But living the alone in the act, very difficult. It's much easier to withdraw from action, to hide in a cave. Though she says sadhana in a cave is not easy. Besides, it gives you the illusion of experience, of doing something great, because your ego is not challenged. If you are in a cave, somebody comes to meet you also, will think you are a sadhu baba and will bow down to you, so you'll feel also flattered. See, Somebody from America has come and he's going, because they are all looking for people in the caves. That's our understanding of sadhu babas. But in real life, where you don't pose to be like a sadhu, but inwardly you will be challenged. Somebody will say something, because sadhus, you are not supposed to say that. So, whatever people may feel on the face, they will, at least in India, they will observe that reverence. So, you never come to know. But in real life, you will be challenged. So, she says, but living thee alone in the act, whatever it may be, again she is qualifying, regardless of the act, but living thee, ever and always thee, then the illusion is dispelled. Not drawing from action, but thou, mother, letting her work through and act in everything. The falsehoods of the senses vanish, the bond of consequences is broken, all is transformed into a manifestation of the glory of thy eternal presence. So let it be. Then look at it. She goes to the highest because she is now identified with the divine. And from there, like a supreme benediction, she turns towards nature and says, so let it be. So the whole gospel of Gita, and even it touches a little beyond, is there in one prayer of the mother. Can we imagine? And still we have this habit of circulating on WhatsApp. This is written in the Gita. First of all, it's not written. Jo hua, cha hua, jo hoga, cha hoga. Such absurdities, inanities. And in India, when this is circulated, really, that means the person has really not read the Gita, leave aside. Living the Gita is a far greater cry. But here, without mentioning the Gita, she is revealing to us the truth of the Gita, because truth is something to be lived, and when it is lived, it is authentic for you. It doesn't matter. Even if nobody in the world has ever spoken about it, it's still there. Truth doesn't belong to anyone. It is something to be realized and lived. Truth lives in its own light. So we read again this wonderful prayer, which is the ultimate gospel of the divine works. December 10th, 1912. O Supreme Master, Eternal Teacher, it has been once more granted me to verify the unequalled effectivity of a full confidence in thy leading. So before anything we do, offer it and call the divine presence. Thy light was manifested through my mouth yesterday, and it met no resistance in me. The instrument was willing, supple, keen of edge, prepared, ready, supple, not rigid, and ready and offered to the Lord. It is thou who art the doer in each thing and each being, and he who is near enough to thee to see thee in all actions without exception will know how to transform each act into a benediction. Anyways, he is the sole doer. We don't know. But the yogin knows. This is the difference. And when he knows, life changes. Or we can say life truly begins. Before that, it is death, which we call life. To abide always in thee is the one thing that matters. Always and ever more in thee. Beyond illusions and the deceptions of the senses, not drawing back from action, refusing it, rejecting it, is struggle useless and pernicious. But living thee alone in the act, whatever it may be, ever and always thee. Then the illusion is dispelled. The falsehoods of the senses vanish. The bond of consequences is broken. Na karma lipyate nara. Isha Upanishad, second shloka. The bond of consequences is broken, which arise when action is done in a state of ego. Action does not bind us. It is the state of consciousness that binds us. If we do it in a state of inner freedom, nothing can bind us. all is transformed into a manifestation of the glory of thy eternal presence. So let it be.